We went super old school today with a little twist. Why? This last weekend there was more fishing pressure on the water than I had seen all year. The shallow bass were absolutely pounded. While there are lots of finesse presentations that we talk about, I ended up using a Finesse Carolina rig with a pumpkin lizard with a chartreuse tail. I literally haven't thrown a lizard like that probably in 20 years. This one is a really old Strike King 3X bait, so it's made from Elastec. I wanted to use a lizard that has more buoyancy to it because there is so much chara grass starting to grow on the lake bed. I wanted to keep that lure just above it a little bit easier. And the small weight of the Finesse Carolina rig, this one was a 1/4 ounce, also helped. The bigger, heavier weights grab the vegetation and don't come through it as nicely. They will, but I wanted to be very subtle since there are so many bass in the shallows right now. And here you can see how buoyant the lizard is. I'm just holding the lure over the side of the boat and it suspends nicely. And here it is on the bottom right after the rig hits after a cast. But this is where the magic of a Finesse Carolina rig comes into play when fishing shallow waters and pressured bass, especially with this type of Elastec plastic lure. It just hovers and glides along so well. Here you can watch the lizard as it follows the weight down, the weight hits, and then this buoyant lure slowly glides down. So many of my initial bites would happen right at that part of the cast. Then it scoots along the lake bed so nicely, and yes, it did get hit by 1,000 panfish, but as we've shown in other videos, when the panfish get excited by something, it can often draw bass into the area to investigate what is going on. So I don't mind that constant rapid fire little bites like I used to. I also never got a big wad of vegetation that messed up a cast once, and if I felt a bite or a short strike, I could leave it rest a second and know that the lizard was doing its thing down there to stay visible. I was able to catch quite a few buck bass using this rig. I never hooked up with one of the larger female bass cruising these areas, but after a weekend with so much boat traffic and fishing pressure, I was very pleased to keep catching these guys shallow. The Finesse Carolina rig proved its worth by being subtle, yet still having the benefits of the larger Carolina rigs as far as covering water, but it was also very snag-free. Now, it is definitely easier to cast on spinning gear, but it would work on casting equipment as well. I kept adjusting the leader length for the situation by sliding the weight stops or bobber stops up and down the line. If I came to a location that had a little more vegetation that was taller, I increased the leader length, and if the bottom became a little bit cleaner, then I would shorten it some to make it easier to cast. I went with the lizard 100% because I rarely ever see or hear about anyone around here using a lizard anymore. I mean, it doesn't seem like that long ago when everyone was throwing lizards, and pumpkin chartreuse was one of the hottest colors that you could buy. Now, that concept of something different is so important in the spring if you're having trouble getting bites and you suspect that fishing pressure has a lot to do with it. Now, with that said, I had to give the bass a little time to eat this thing. They weren't slamming it and running towards you like often happens with a Carolina rig. You would just feel a little sponginess and could tell that one was playing with it. I'd wait just a second or two and then set the hook. Now, smaller, more compact lures I'm sure would have helped with that, but I was so excited to throw a lizard again after all these years. It was the most fun that I've had on the water in a long time. And hey, if you want to watch a video that compares a wobblehead or swing head to a worm weight and what they do that is similar and very different, go ahead and check this one out right here. And make sure that you go out and encourage someone today. You never know how you might just change their life. For the Bass Fishing Life, I'm your host, Steve Rogers.